This is The Guardian.
Hello and welcome to The Guardian Football Weekly, a Boxing Day that scores a solid 6, perhaps even a 7 on the 1963 scale. Some really good stuff in there. Fulham come back from behind to win at Stamford Bridge for the first time since 1979. Harry Wilson and Rodrigo Muniz both off the bench. Elsewhere, an excellent day for narrative reinforcement. Some more confirmation that Forest are good on the counter and Spurs are ripe for being countered. Some more confirmation of just how big Ruben Amorim's job is, a 2-0 defeat at Vitor's inspired Wolves. Some more confirmation that Liverpool are good and Man City aren't good anymore. John Duran gets a controversial red as Newcastle beat Villa. West Ham get a scratchy win at Southampton and Palace hold Bournemouth at the Vitality. You sent us some nice messages after the Christmas special and some questions, and we'll do both of those on today's Guardian Football Weekly. On the panel today, Will Unwin, welcome.
Hello, Max.
Hello, Lars Sivertsen.
Ho, 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 Max. Festive greetings to you all.
Thank you so much for bringing a Christmassy feel to the intro, Lars. Happy Christmas, Jonathan Fadugba. Welcome.
Merry Christmas, Max, and good morning to you.
Dominic says, Man City held at home, Haaland misses a pen, Man U and Spurs both lose again, and in the bottom half, Chelsea lose in the last minute, Forest are third, Bournemouth are above City. Honestly, are we not thoroughly entertained? Box office on Boxing Day. Let's start with Fulham's late win at Stamford Bridge. Brilliant win for them. Paul says, voice note from Archie. He begged and pleaded to submit a voice note, so here it is.
Max, Boxing Day was one of the best days of football, and indeed Fulham, that I've ever experienced, because finally we won at Chelsea for the first time since 1979. Fulham do not like Chelsea. Chelsea do not care about Fulham. They ruffle our hair like we are the insignificant brothers in their life. But to be able to leave a mark with Rodrigo Muniz on 90+5, a goal that I can still see replaying over and over again in my head, is something that will stay with me forever. And I wasn't even there. I'm in Canada right now, seeing one of my best friends, Saoirse, who I've known since I was 8, who is a Fulham fan. And this is part of the reason I'm here, was to experience watching Fulham with somebody who it means just as much to as me, and being able to experience something that was happening such a long way away like this is something I'm sure that many listeners can associate with, and it is glorious. So yeah, going to be drinking that in for a while. I didn't think that Harry Wilson's double against Brentford could be bettered so quickly. Oh, how wrong I was. This is glorious. Praise be to Rodrigo Muniz, who has tattooed his name somewhere on my soul now. Thanks, bye.
Goodbye to you, Archie, as well, and love to our Canadian audience. And Lars, as he pointed out then, just such a brilliant moment for those Fulham fans around the world, but at Stamford Bridge, when that very calm Rodrigo Muniz finish went in.
Yeah, because this is one of those where if you're not, you could be forgiven for not being aware that this is a big rivalry, right? Especially because it's been a very one-sided one for quite a long time. But as you can just tell from the tenor and pitch of Archie's voice, it's a big deal for the Fulham people, and understandably so. And really, it wasn't undeserved either. You know, I can get into Chelsea in a while, but I just thought the way Fulham grew into the game here was really impressive, and kind of got stronger as the game went on. I think it might be a recurring theme of the pod that I think fatigue is a big thing for a lot of teams right now. There's a lot of games, all this sort of stuff, but Fulham just kind of seemed to grow into it, and deserved result, I thought. Very good.
Yeah, they're level on points with Manchester City, 1 point behind Newcastle, up in 5th. And actually they have done well, Will, haven't they? In sort of every time someone leaves, and I'm copying what someone called Lars Sivertsen told me on the radio recently. You know, Mitrovic left, that was a crisis. Paulinho left, that was a crisis. And they have managed, mainly by just checking who was okay at Arsenal recently, in building like a really coherent squad.
This is it with Marco Silva. I think I was on discussing the Arsenal game a few weeks ago.
that in a Premier League where a lot of managers are criticised for not being pragmatists, he is. And he changed tactics yesterday. You know, the wing backs are pushing high up, pushing Chelsea back. Anthony Robertson is probably the best left wing back going. But in terms of changing things, when someone comes in, you know, Munoz had a great spell last season. Jimenez is in this season. They're playing to Traore's strengths, which are mainly not allowing him to play the final ball. Iwobi's moved a bit more inside, and you know, he created the first goal where Pedro Neto cry-arsed on the floor for no reason. And this is it. They play to the individual strengths. Mitrovic goes, you can't sign a carbon copy of Mitrovic. So then they adjust things, tweaking things slightly, because that's what Silva does. He knows how to do it. He knows the strengths of each individual player and what you get out of them. Look at Bassi's run in the first half. He knows he has that in his locker. And that's it. It's clever coaching, knowing where Chelsea might struggle out wide with the wingers and having Castanet and Robinson and Traore, you know, pushing them all back. It's working. It's a cunning plan to just stick to your strengths rather than playing football that your players don't know how to operate within. And that's it. Be a clever coach and you can, you know, be better than you should be, as Chelsea found out yesterday.
And it's interesting, isn't it, Jonathan, when you look at Fulham in eighth level with City, Bournemouth at 1 point ahead and then Forest in third. And it's a sort of unlikely looking Premier League table. And I think most of us think, eventually it'll all just sort of move back to how it always is. And I don't know which of those sides do you think is most likely to maintain a push. But it's just good, right? It's good that it's different.
Yeah, it's good that it's different. I think that Silva is an established manager now, and it seems to be sort of redemption this season so far for managers who kind of were thought to be highly rated, then not thought to be highly rated, and now are again thought to be highly rated. Nuno Espirito Santo being another one who kind of came in, did really well, then had a rough spell. A bit like Silva when, you know, he had the sort of the Watford, the Everton roles. People started to maybe question, what is he sort of cut out for Premier League management? And now he's sort of settled down at Fulham. You know, they've got a lot of Premier League experience, a lot of players who have sort of been there and done it. Even the signings, you know, the likes of Smith Rowe and people like that. Although he's not, you know, set the house on fire yet at Fulham, someone who can fit into that squad and do a decent job. And so, yeah, they've done really well. You know, the ability of Silva as well, he can play different styles. You know, he can sit in a deep block like he did against Chelsea and counter-attack. He can play possession game. If you look at, for example, the Arsenal game that they played not so long ago, where he kind of put five at the back and doubled up against sort of Saka and Smith Rowe on the right hand side. Yeah, the sky's the limit. And I think the good thing about this season for a lot of teams is it's kind of open for anyone, really. I mean, with fifth place probably likely to take a Champions League spot at this moment in time, you've got teams like Forest, Fulham, you know, not too far off, only sort of 6 points off it or so, who can maybe dream when other teams like Man City are doing so terribly, that maybe this could be a year where they can really sort of reach for the sky.
Lars? I mean, you say that the sky's the limit, the sky being fifth is the limit. It's probably right. Maybe fourth, you don't know. Lars, you were coming in.
Yeah, probably something like that is the limit. I think what also impressed me with this performance is that when I looked at the lineup, I thought they might be in trouble, because you mentioned how well they've dealt with Paulinho's departure, and one of the reasons for that is that compatriot of mine, Sander Berge, has been quietly very good in midfield. The surprisingly tall Sander Berge in midfield has really, in a slightly less crunchy tackle showy kind of way to Paulinho, been quite efficient at sweeping up possession and just kind of keeping things ticking over. He was not available here, and I thought for sure going away to Stamford Bridge with him not there was going to be a problem. And then in the first half, we kept seeing Cole Palmer get into space in between midfield and attack, picking up the ball as he does for the first goal. It was a brilliant goal, by the way. And there were several situations like that.
Amazing goal.
Just so
it?
Good.
Yeah.
And I thought, I thought, all right, yeah, we're going to have a Cole Palmer bit on the pod today. But, you know, that's been overshadowed. But that was a really good goal. And it kept happening. And I was trying to watch more than one game at the time, so I'm not entirely sure what the tactical shift was. But in the second half, that was no longer happening. There was some kind of tactical shift happened to deny him that space. So whether that was in-game management or one of the midfielders copping on, I'm not sure. But basically, their sort of midfield shield that replaced the midfield shield was not there. And they still managed to go to Stamford Bridge and shut up shop eventually and not concede that many chances. So they're just... I definitely think, having not... I feel we don't talk about Fulham enough, and I think one of the reasons we don't is they don't have like superstars or super exciting players, and there's nothing tactically weird going on there. There's just not a lot of narratives, to grab onto. But they're really good. They're one of those teams that's just consistently better than the sum of their parts, and that's admirable.
Barry says, how many more stewards or bar staff bonuses need to be slashed before they stop holding Manchester United back from a victory? Yeah, Wolves 2, Manchester United 0. Vitor Pereira winning the battle of the Portuguese. 2 wins in a row for him. Jonathan, what did you make of this one?
It's a tough run for United fans at the moment. I think that Wolves are really good. So it seems that Pereira's come in and immediately, I mean, he claimed that he's not really done too much and just made a few tactical tweaks and really sort of honed in on one or two specific things, probably set pieces and corners in the few days that he's had since he's taken charge. On the Manchester United side of things, yeah, not great. Obviously, the red card had a big impact. I think probably is a red card, 2 silly kind of needless fouls from the captain Bruno Fernandes, which doesn't help when you're trying to sort of re-establish yourself and Amorim's trying to sort of build a squad. But no, Wolves really good. Pereira was so happy to be there. He said afterwards he's so happy to be in the Premier League. He's just absolutely loving life as a Premier League manager. He's waited so long. I think he missed out on the Everton job 3 times, which is enough to make anyone desperate to join Wolves, I suppose. he sort of put it down to sort of like a mental click amongst the players, really, which is maybe a sort of a sideswipe at Gary O'Neill and just essentially just maybe telling the players, quite good players, go out there and show me you're good players. After what was happening at Wolves with all the fights and everything and, the behind the scenes sort of chaos. For United, it's kind of going, I think it's going how I would expect it to go with Amorim. That's, for Manchester United, it's another case of making a sort of not bad decision at completely the wrong time in the sense of ripping up your squad shape mid-season to give a manager who's a complete sort of 3-4-3 dogmatic manager who insists on playing that style in the mid-season when he has no time to work on it at all, no pre-season, and has a squad that's completely not suited to playing that style. So it is what's going to happen, really. I mean, I feel sorry for Amorim in a way. I think he's got a massive wake-up call. I remember when he had the first few press conferences when he was linked with the job, when he was at Sporting, and he was just so happy and smiley. And I remember remarking to a friend of mine, like, I'm not sure if he really realises what he's getting himself into at United. And I think he's had the wake-up call now. The last few weeks has been the wake-up call where he's realised, because it's not only that, I think he's done a good job in the sense of, tried to do in the first few weeks, is essentially the squad is so burnt out in certain areas and then so underplayed in certain areas. Some players are not playing at all. Some players, like Dalot, for example, have literally played every single game almost. I think Dalot, the first game he missed under Amorim was the first game he hadn't started since Boxing Day last year. So he'd nearly played a full year of calendar games, starting every single one of them. So I think he's done a good job in trying to get the squad physically all on the same level. But now he's sort of done that with the rotation. He's now realised, actually, almost every single player in his squad isn't good enough. So now he's in a position where it's like he's kind of stuck. And that's where the January transfer window is going to be massive for them, because United finished 8th last season and won a trophy, and it was considered maybe a bad season for Ten Hag. I don't think United are going to finish. I think United this season 8th would be considered a successful season, the way things are going.
Yeah, Amorim said, in this moment, we just have to survive and to win some time to work on the team. We already knew it. I started this job with the team, the new idea, without any time to train, with a lot of tough games. It's a long journey. We have to continue to fight these bad moments. We need time to work. We also have to win games to sell the idea to the players. If not, it's really hard. I mean, he wasn't helped, Will, by Fernandes' sending off. And the second yellow is so pointless. And it's just, you can't. Well, you can do that. I can't say you can't do that. You can, and he did do that.
Yeah, it's not what you want from your skipper. In a needless part of the pitch, a waste of time, probably an indication of frustration maybe with the overall situation, those sort of things that creep in. It is what United are at the moment, deeply underwhelming, frustrated and lacking any quality when Fernandes is off the pitch. So he's not really helping anyone. I mean, if United had kept hold of paid stewards a bit more, maybe they could have surrounded Onana for the corner to provide the protection that they were unwilling to produce. There were complaints about it, but I mean, there's just no one there to help him. And what's the goalkeeper do? You can't rugby tackle people out of the way. It was bizarre, and it was a ploy that they'd worked on. I mean, I can't imagine there's many clubs thinking, yeah, I think we could score from the corner this weekend. So fair enough. You say it's a big January transfer window, but I don't think there's any money, and who would turn up at this point? It's a really tricky one. There's no value in the market in January. United don't have a massive amount of cash, so I'm deeply suspicious that they'll end up with this same unbalanced, underwhelming squad for the next few months as they battle to finish above 10th. But it's a pretty depressing time to be a United fan, I suspect, going away at Wolves and being outplayed, really. I was at Wolves against Leicester at the weekend as well, and Wolves looked a little bit better than they had been under O'Neill, a bit more confident, a bit more flow to their play, but they're not world beaters. They're going to find out very soon, but they're still in a relegation battle despite 6 points in 6.
They are going to Spurs next, so that's another 3 points for Wolves, isn't it? It's interesting, Lars, that Cunha did score from the... it's interesting that he's still playing, given Glass's spectacles gate from Matthias Cunha, but that he'd seen Son score from a corner and thought, well, I'll give that a go, considering it's a different goalkeeper, but it's the same or similar defence.
Yeah, it's an interesting one with the blocking move. I think we discussed it a few weeks back in the context of Arsenal, is that there is there's an imbalance of risk there. Because if you're an attacking player and you put a block on someone in the box and you kind of obstruct them, there's not a lot to lose, is there? If the referee blows up, you've lost a corner kick, that's fine. You'll have a few more in the game. But as the defender, if you have to barge someone out of the way to get some kind of advantage back, you risk giving away a penalty. Like, it's not likely, but it could happen. So, and that must be at the back of your mind. Like, I think Joe Hart was saying on Match of the Day that as a goalkeeper, he would want one of his defenders to come in and barge the Wolves player out of the way. And that's probably the way you'd want it as a goalkeeper. But that player will know, if I'm too forceful with this dude, that I could give away a penalty here. So it makes total sense to deploy these kind of shenanigans, and it brings me back to my hobby horse of like the penalty law needing some kind of revision. But I just think in a big picture for this game is that it's an interesting contrast between two sort of mid-season appointments with Vitor Pereira, who doesn't appear to have changed much on paper at Wolves, as he said. They line up in the same formation. It's close to the same 11, which I guess is because Wolves have a tiny squad, so there's not a lot of wiggle room there. But he hasn't suddenly reverted to a back four. He hasn't made a dramatic change of structure mid-season. He's just gone in and probably done some bits to tighten up the defense a little bit. Whereas Amorim is trying to do this wholesale change in the way United approach football games, playing a lot of players in positions they're not used to. And he talked about it after the game. He said they need time to train. They're completely changing the way they're playing. It's really hard on them, which is like, well, that's kind of, you've decided that they're doing that in the middle of the season when there's no time to train. So I don't know. I'm going to put this question out there. For a coach coming in who has his way of playing that he believes in, is it better for him to just go, probably can't implement this straight away because we have no time to work on it and we're just going to have to do it gradually? Or should he sort of do what Amorim is doing, which is the opposite of that?
There are managers who stick rigidly to tactics, of which we will move on to now, even though he didn't change this mid-season. And I'm really conscious that we've done so much Tottenham. So while they are interesting and they continue to be interesting, I think we should make this a Nottingham Forest-centric conversation, at least for a while. They are third, 1 point behind Chelsea, 34 points from 18 games, their best start to a season since 1980. Their highest ever Premier League finish was third in 94-95. Is that Pierre Van Hooijdonk? Is that Brian Roy era? When is that? Or is that maybe a bit before then? Collymore, maybe. I'm not sure. Yeah, could be. But what for Jonathan, for Nuno, this is just, it's so unsurprising, this win. I think everybody thought Forest v Spurs, Forest will get a goal on the counter and then shut up shop. It's just how it panned out if you were to write down what would happen.
It is indeed, and Forest are a really good team at the moment. I think it goes back to a little bit similar to what I said about Fulham. If you look at the team, the starting lineup, there's some really good players there, and it gives them, like I said, a chance to dream and look up at the Premier League. I mean, just relating it back to the Wolves United game for a second, in the sense of the squad quality, and it goes back to what Will says about maybe January transfers. Which sort of United player would necessarily get? I don't think there's many United players that would get in the Wolves team, like genuinely. And I know that sounds ridiculous to say, but and it's a similar thing with Forest. If you look at the Forest team, a lot of them would walk into Manchester United's first 11. You've got the centre back pairing, which everyone's raving about at the moment, in Milinkovic and Murillo. One is that sort of aggressor Murillo who sort of charges in at everyone, and then you've got the calming, scary Milinkovic, who's just sort of menacingly looking at everyone and sweeping up any mistakes that need to be done. Olaina, of course, ex-Chelsea graduate, and Williams, fullbacks, did really well. Sales is having quite a good season. The ability, similar to Fulham again in Forest, is that they can play different styles as well. They can kind of counter-attack on you with the likes of Hudson-Odoi, who was so good at youth level, at Chelsea. And I know he's had his injury problems with his Achilles and everything, but it's so good to see him back sort of playing and doing well. But he was such a quality player when he was younger. And Elanga, of course, who was, really good at United for spells, and, is a young player with a lot of potential and talent. And then you've got Chris Wood, who's just on fire. So I think with Forest, like us, they can play that counter-attacking style. They can dominate games with the likes of Gibbs White on the ball. So it's not that they're just kind of lucky this season and things are going well for them. They're a really good team. As I said, similar to Fulham in the way that they're set up, and Nuno's had that similar background to Marco Silva in that he's had that failure at Spurs, the 17 games that he got, and amidst all the kind of Ange out stuff that's going on at Spurs at the moment, it makes you just look at Nuno and say, look, they hardly gave him much time, and look at how well he's doing now. So no, Forest are a real breath of fresh air, and I think that when you look at them on the pitch and the things they're doing, they're a really entertaining side. And like I say, they can play multiple styles. The only team to go to Anfield and sort of give them a proper game and win. So, no, doing really well.
You look at Forest, they finished 17th last season. They stayed up on the final day, effectively. They were pretty much up. But they targeted in the summer what they needed. It wasn't like, we finished 17th, we've got massive problems here. And in previous seasons, obviously, they've done huge overhauls of the squad, but essentially from the final day they've got Milenkovic and Anderson from the weekend, and that's the only two new players. Everyone else was there, and they signed a few other players. They got Jota Silva, they got Ramon Sosa as extra wing options because Nuno loves wingers. And it's just this. If you look at the other clubs, everyone lives and dies by recruitment. United's squad isn't fit for purpose. City have obviously got big gaps at the moment. But Forest recruitment has been very intelligent over the past 12 months. So Sells came in last January. He's been incredible for them. Not a goalkeeper. His experience in England previously was mediocre, to say the least, at Newcastle. And he's, the saves he was making yesterday, kept the clean sheet for them. And that's it. It's just a model of you don't have to overhaul the whole squad when things are going badly. You target where your problems are. You sign Milenkovic, you sign Anderson, and even Anderson probably wasn't on the cards till late on because Newcastle needed the money. And that's it. It's intelligent recruitment, working to your strengths again, and being quite sensible with what you do. And I think Forest will target a striker in January to provide extra backup for Wood and Awoniyi, who's not really done much this season, but obviously Wood's in excellent form, and that'll be it. And the mentality there has changed. This isn't just a good run. They think they're good enough to challenge for Europe. This isn't just sort of luck. The squad mentality now is that they can go for top 6, 5, and even top 4. So it's going to be an interesting one for the rest of the season at Forest.
I mean, the crucial input here, but the 94-95 Nottingham Forest season, very much the Alfie Hall and Lars Bohinen years.
Of course.
You can take your Stan Collymore and your Brian Roy's. It's Holland and Bohinen for me, Jeff. I wonder if Forest can be termed a mini Chelsea, which is like they've done so much weird stuff in the transfer window. They bought so many players, and at times it's looked very chaotic. But the reality is also they have sort of sneakily brought in quite a lot of good players in the middle of that spree. And Nuno is the Enzo Maresca of the lower half, which no longer the lower half, very much in the top half. He is the guy who has found an 11 that works. And this must have been very satisfying for the formerly sad Jedi, who's currently looking quite cheerful.
Tottenham's worst first half of a Premier League season since 08-09. They've lost 4 and 5. They're 11th. Ange's post-match was 2 minutes long.
Did he just say mate miserable several times and leave?
Just mate, looked at the ground and just said, I can't ask any more of these players. Big Hair Forever says, how long is too long for this bad streak with Ange? Is it all down to squad depth, injury? Is it all just too naive? I'm genuinely interested to hear the pod's opinion because the pitchforks appear to be getting raised. Lars?
Well, I just don't think there's much point to making a change right now, because as we've just discussed in the context of Amorim, there are limits to what you can do mid-season in terms of putting a new system into place. It's very, very difficult. I just think, being of the Spurs persuasion, I'd rather have a guy like Ange in charge of the club than having the sort of egomaniacal whinge bags of the previous sort of Conte Mourinho era. But what I would like to see is for him to show some willingness or ability to adapt to circumstance, which is something he's refusing to do. But the reality for the team is they've got a lot of injuries right now. I mean, if Dragoshin, who had to come off, is actually injured, and Spence is kind of, that leaves them with Archie Gray, who's not a centre half, and then no other centre half for the next game. There's like no centre halves at the club. Like, no one's saying this is an easy situation for him. And the other thing is, while the rest of the team is looking kind of strong, if you look up front, most of the main guys are there. You have a lot of squad players injured, so you haven't been able to rotate a lot. So the guys are looking very, very tired. But my question would always be then, if you have a squad where you have a lot of injuries so you can't rotate and the players have to play every third day, maybe don't set them up to play in a way that takes a lot of energy and is particularly demanding physically when you know they're tired. But that's the whole thing. It's what we do, mate. It's how they set up for every game. And I just think, I don't know if it's possible. If you're trying to be competitive in the Premier League, you're hoping to have at least one good cup run. You're looking at sort of 50 games a year, and if this team is only going to function when everything's going to plan and everyone's available and everyone's at a good physical condition, you're going to have these runs of poor form. I think for him to manage at this level, he's going to have to show some degree of adaptability, whatever his philosophy and belief is. And that's, I think, what he needs to display between now and the end of the season, because it's not, what this bad run has shown is that he is going to stick with his approach, whether it makes sense or not, and it currently doesn't make sense.
Just a note to say, lovely to see Chris Kamara on the television at Amazon. He said he was doing the sort of, Jeff Stelling did a goal show thing, and he said, when Amazon rang me up, I thought they wanted me to deliver parcels, which is, as you can imagine, when Cammy said it, funny, because genuinely funny guy and a lovely guy, and really nice to see him on the box as well. And I think Jim Rosenthal hosted his last game on TV yesterday, and what a servant to football Jim Rosenthal is. Also a lovely chap, so well done to both of them. That'll do for part one. Part two will begin with Manchester City's draw at home to Everton. Welcome to part two of the Guardian Football Weekly. The Etihad, Man City won, Everton won. The Man City crisis klaxon might need its batteries replaced pretty soon. Could we start with the goal from Ilian Ndiaye? Because, Jonathan, it's unbelievably good, I think. Like, to control that ball and finish it. And the angle, the camera angle from behind the goal, it was just such a perfect strike. And he's such an exciting, non-Everton-ish player, I think.
Yep, former Boreham Wood, non-league to Premier League, so fantastic sort of shout for the pyramid as well in English football. The work he's done, Iliman Ndiaye, quality. Yeah, it's a brilliant strike, instinctive, the way he takes it, just catches Ortega out really, and just that bit of intricacy and trickery and sort of intelligence that is everything that Manchester City are not at the moment really in the last sort of 13 or so games. It's funny because I think Everton, I believe it's one of the only open play goals they've scored in
history, their history. Yes, I think
it might be ever under Sean Dyche. It kind of seems like a bit of an upside down game in the sense. Everton, I mean, the 4v2 at the end as well. I mean, that summed up why they struggle so much in scoring goals from open play, because going 4v2 at the end there, it genuinely looked like they were scared and didn't know what to do, and kind of had never been told what to do in this situation. The way they kind of just mumbled around and just eventually did nothing when it was a huge chance to win the match, really. Everton have done really well in the big games, haven't they? Obviously, the Arsenal game as well, they got a point. Didn't get to play Liverpool because of the storm that day, but the top teams, they're doing quite well against Chelsea as well. I think that the problem with Man City at the moment is just, it's not only that they are lacking confidence and not really good defensively, it's also the fact that they're not really creating much at all. I think it was an astute point someone made, I can't remember when it was, a few weeks ago, about Haaland and in the Manchester derby, and sort of just not tracking back, not running around enough. And that kind of thing is perpetuated into the whole team, really, in the sense of like they're just basic things they're not doing, and I think that is normal in a way because they've been so good and it's hard to maintain their level for so many years. But it is alarming to watch in almost every game how often it happens when they're just kind of standing around, even in situations where they're on the ball and they've got like an attacking move. You know, City used to be just all movement, everyone's running everywhere, and they're so static. It's actually quite easy for a team like Everton, who are very good defensively, to defend against. So in a way, it wasn't a huge surprise. This was obviously Haaland missing a penalty as well, was a big moment. But things just aren't really going too well for Man City in a moment. And another weird thing that I find strange was the fact that Jack Grealish was apparently out with, I think Pep used the words, "I don't know where he is," in the description of pre-match. So
AWOL.
There was a hint of a muscle injury, but then Pep's comment was a little bit, So I mean, I don't know what's happening with Jack Grealish. He does seem to sort of avoid the scrutiny there. Maybe he genuinely is injured, but just some strange goings on at City at the moment. And January is another team I think that needs to sort of dip in January and sort of plug a few gaps.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. They did have chance in this game. Obviously, the penalty. Pickford had a really good game. So I don't know if you see this game as kind of slightly different to a lot of the ones they've lost. But even still, it's just weird to see them. Like, I mean, it's sort of exhilarating in a way.
It's a great nostalgia trip for me. So,
yeah, I bet.
The mid-90s, and the Stuart Pearce era of the noughties. I thought the first 20 minutes that he played really well. I thought Everton's low block would be quite inviting for them. There was a bit more zip about them. Got the goal, and then all that zip went. Followed a similar pattern to recently, so not much energy in there. That City have been known for, a bit of a struggle, susceptible on the counter attack, and once you get a penalty, you think Haaland's going to do it. But it was a good save from Pickford. It wasn't an incredible penalty. It wasn't right in the corner, and it's probably indicated more again that Haaland's not fully at his best confidence-wise. And then it goes back, as I sort of suggested a bit ago, about recruitment, that actually you just look at the squad, maybe City have become a bit complacent, as you might do after winning four league titles in a row. But there's serious areas lacking, and not having a backup to Haaland now after selling Alvarez is looking naive. And obviously going back to, as mentioned before, but I think the problems go back to Rodri. It's as simple as that. And obviously there's more problems now, but losing a Ballon d'Or winner, the Guardian's Footballer of the Year as well, Rodri, it just knocks the confidence, and now the confidence is getting worse and worse, and that's it. Confidence goes, energy goes. Should have bought more players in the summer. Now they're talking about going in January, and they're going to have to sign 2 or 3. It's difficult, but at least they have the money. If having spoken about him before, if Anthony Robinson turned up at City, I think that would be a very sensible move. Not sure Fulham might want to sell in the winter, but there you go. Because they need a midfielder, I think they need a fullback, and somehow if they could pull a backup striker out of the January transfer window, it'd be impressive. So welcome Hugo Viana to Manchester City. Enjoy January.
Well, look, their next game is away to Leicester, so it couldn't happen.
Oh, they're rubbish.
But it seems unlikely. They went to Liverpool and, put up a decent fight for 45 minutes. Sadly, not 45 plus 1 minutes. Laura says, is there any greater weather to watch football in than fog? Josh says, if we can't see the game, can we just claim Liverpool have scored 5? And John says, is the fog descending over Anfield actually the Vestergaard Bednarak vortex? It was so Christmassy, Lars. It just felt so perfectly Christmassy watching this game. And it looked for a bit like Liverpool might be joining, the other big clubs, brackets and Spurs, by dropping points. And then they just turned up.
When you say, I don't know what constitutes Christmassy where you're, in the UK. I'm in Norway at the moment. I was just I saw on my screen, I had a multitude of games, but I had the Forest. I did watch some of the Forest Tottenham game. I watched some of all of the Wolves United game, and I watched this one. And I just kind of think, has all of the UK just become a massive bog? Is this just like the sort of bog fog hanging over the entire nation? In my what's going on over there? What's happening?
I think you can have. I think crisp winter's day is Christmassy, but foggy evening is also Christmassy. I think you can have both. That's how I feel about it.
Certainly my experience of spending Christmas in the UK is that it's frequently like 7 degrees and rain. That seems very Christmassy.
Also, that is Christmassy too, yes.
Yeah. I just think, well, maybe in the first half of Wolves United, I thought this fog is just God trying to save us from watching this game of football, because it was really dreadful. But no, this game was actually quite entertaining. And I was looking at this ahead of it with Vestergaard and Cody in defence against the sort of flying forwards of Liverpool, thinking this is going to be a cricket score, isn't it? It's going to be quite disgraceful. I think looking at the betting odds ahead of the game, the price on Liverpool to get anything was ridiculous. It was like if you bet a tenner on Liverpool, it would return less than £1 of winnings. It was like the probabilities were. So when they then got a goal, Leicester, that made it interesting. But I was impressed by the way Liverpool just. Maybe I shouldn't be too impressed, but they just kind of kept going. There was no hint of panic. There was no hint of stress. And it took them a while to get the first goal. And then that can be, if teams are not fully settled, you go one down early in a game where everyone's turned up expecting you to win easily, and then you miss some chances, as they did in the first half. And some might start to feel this is just not our day, and you might see some anxiety creep in. And I thought there was none of that. They just kind of kept the ball moving, and you always felt confident that they were going to get it. Obviously, the kind of form they've been on will breed a little bit of confidence, understandably so. But I just thought like the ease and calm and sort of, of the way they got back into the game with not a hint of panic or concern was really impressive.
Jonathan, Gakpo's finish is brilliant. I mean, it was coming, but there's so much quality in that. And I guess when a team is playing so well, you probably don't single out individuals as much. There's a lot of, Salah's great because there's the contract conversation, which means players like Diaz and Gakpo are sort of having great seasons without any of us really knowing or noticing. So have you noticed? My question is, how well is Gakpo doing? Because I'll confess, I haven't really spotted him. And I think I saw some stat going, he's got a goal and assist every 98 minutes or something.
Yeah, one of the things that I think Arne Slot has really done this season that maybe, Klopp did to an extent last season, but I think Slot has done it a bit with a bit more emphasis is really get the juice out of the whole squad. And the likes of Gakpo is sort of really starting to step up now. Gravenberch as well is having a really good season, I think, in midfield, and it's getting a lot of the plaudits as well for that. McAllister, 2 assists as well. So I think the one thing with Slot is I think he's been really good at his second halves of games this season. Perhaps that sort of alludes to what Lars was saying about just you kind of they just carry on and you just expect them to turn it around even if they're 1-0 down. Is that ability to just tap into the squad. Slot can, he makes changes. He's quite proactive in that sense. He, for example, Trent, he's been quite, although Trent played 90 minutes yesterday, he's rotated him quite a lot this season. He's pulled him out of games when he needs to. He's managed minutes really well, I think, in that sense, and that's one of the reasons that they're sort of just running away with the title probably. And you might even say the title's done, to be honest, at this rate, because they're running away with it really. Even Curtis Jones as well has looked really good, got his goal. Slot's just brought that calm air of they can play different styles. If they need to play a possession game, it's a bit like I said about sort of Forest and Fulham in a way. It's just a good team that can play many different styles. And also Liverpool have that added strength of depth really with the amount of players they have and top quality players in the front end of the pitch. Unlike City, for example, as Will mentioned, where Haaland is pretty much all they have, which seems crazy to say it in a way, but it's kind of true. Liverpool are not that at all. They're almost the opposite. They've got options all over the place. Diaz didn't start yesterday, for example. Jota's still there to come back in. Salah's just on fire. So Gakpo's having a very good season, and there's been a bit more emphasis on him, I think, this year in terms of his output. But you can apply that to almost everyone in the squad really at the moment. So yes, I mean, I don't see anyone catching him at this moment in time.
Yeah, 7 points clear with the game in hand. We are, Will, verging on it's theirs to lose territory. And perhaps as much because no one behind them is consistent enough, right? I mean, I still think Arsenal have got an amazing chance because you imagine Liverpool will have a blip at some point and Arsenal are not too far away.
But it's going back to everything comes down to recruitment, and Liverpool have the most complete squad in the league. I mean, maybe an extra centre-back might be helpful. But, we're saying, I thought you could turn off when Gakpo equalised yesterday. I thought, that's it. They're going to win. Everything's fine. But they can change their front three and bring on, 3 world-class players. I mean, I appreciate Chiesa's not done much yet due to injury. But if you can bring on Jota, Diaz and Chiesa, if things aren't going well against Leicester, they'll get to if you get to 10 points ahead, you could start them again for most of March and let everyone else have a rest and make sure you have a proper tilt at the Champions League. And that's it. They're consistent. They're all playing as well as they can, really. You look at City and you say no one is playing at their best. You look at Liverpool and you can't pick out too many that aren't really at their top level. Maybe Diaz started off 5 in 5 and then had a bit of a drop off, and that's fine. And then Gakpo comes in and he's scored, was it a goal involvement every 98 minutes, but he scored something like 7 and 11 at one point. And that's it. And that's the quality they've got running throughout the squad, all on the same page. Slot had a pre-season to implement his ideas and tweaked a bit from Klopp. So they've got good recruitment, good coaching. It's a well-run football club. A very strange situation in the Premier League.
Yeah, and actually the interesting thing there, Lars, isn't it, that confidence breeds confidence, and if other people are playing well, you can play well, and the pressure isn't as much on you because other people are doing good things, and so it sort of becomes this and City or this and Spurs or whatever are just two snowballs, just like going in opposite directions down the side of a winning-losing mountain that I've envisaged.
Yeah, definitely what I had in mind. What I wanted to say is that last season Liverpool were also top of the league after Boxing Day. In fact, last season Liverpool were top of the league on the 1st of April. And I feel like people forget, because it kind of fizzled out and they didn't win anything in the end. People completely forget how good Liverpool were for how long last season. So one big difference this year is that their rivals are not very good. They're having varying degrees of problems. But the second thing is, I don't want to take anything away from what they've done so far. I think they look to me like the best team in Europe right now, and the best team in the world if you want. For me, the big test comes in the spring, where we will see whether this slightly more controlled manner of playing, it's a little bit less heavy metal and a little bit more controlled, will that enable them to not have this big drop-off that they had last season when they seemed to run out of steam quite suddenly? Will the sort of the more controlled slot machine approach make them kind of stay the distance? Or, on the other hand, maybe when they get to that point, they have so many points that no one can catch them anyway because the other teams have dropped so many points at this part of the season. That might also be true. But my point is, they were also very good last season.
At the risk of upsetting Arsenal fans, I think Arsenal were top of the Premier League at Christmas. I think I'm looking at one now. And
after Boxing Day?
Maybe at Christmas I have. Oh, okay.
I would
good question.
On the 25th, I concede, on the 25th of December, Arsenal were top of the league. On the 27th, they were not.
He's got you on a technicality there, Max.
I would say, Jonathan, not even a technicality, just he's got me. Full stop, hasn't he? I was just worried about the Arsenal backlash, and I was wrong to do so. Who am I to question your stats, Lars? I should know my place, and I will never question you again. All right, that'll do for part 2. Part 3 will begin at St James's Park. Welcome to part 3 of the Guardian Football Weekly. So Newcastle 3, Aston Villa 0. Newcastle started brilliantly. A wonderful strike from Anthony Gordon after a couple of minutes. And then there's the red card. Jonathan, Unai Emery was not impressed. I mean, he wouldn't be. I mean, I don't know, being impressed by the decision is probably the wrong phrase, but did you think that was the correct decision?
No, terrible decision. Pretty obviously slips and just sort of misplaces his footing and sort of flies into the defender mistakenly, really. You can even see when he falls over, he kind of turns to the defender and is sort of checking his well-being. In that sense, it's to suggest this sort of malicious intent is crazy. So, no, another terrible decision, really. And VAR debates are kind of very dull, aren't they, really? So won't go there. But I mean, I just don't see how such an important decision to make in a game that completely changes the complexity of it, especially for a player like Duran who's in such good form. I mean, he was looking a bit fiery in the game, and he did seem a bit riled up. There's that free kick that he wasn't allowed to take, and he was looking very, unhappy about that. But no, I just think it was really, really harsh decision and the wrong one.
Can I just check, Lars? Because I agree with Jonathan. It just seems accidental, but intent doesn't matter. But in this situation, does the intent not mattering actually matter? Does that make sense?
Well, it doesn't according to the laws of the game. And the interesting thing, he does roll his ankle, but he rolls his ankle because he steps on Schär with that one as well. So he kind of steps on him with both his legs. I mean, I thought that was interesting. They were doing this huge close-up of his left foot on Match of the Day. It was like, look, he clearly falls over. And it's like, well, yeah, he's rolled his ankle because he stepped on him with that foot also. On the first viewing, I also thought this looked incredibly harsh. It looked to me like he's running at a high speed and is slightly out of control of his body and just kind of is trying instinctively to not fall over. And where he puts his foot is on Schär's back. But you watch it the second time and he steps on him twice. And I don't know, man. I think it's possible that he could have avoided it. I guess it falls under is the discussion we've had before in relation to the follow-through on when you kick the ball and you landed a boot high on something. There are certain physical actions that the players kind of have to be expected to be allowed to do. I'm waffling a little bit because I've also gone through this journey of like on first viewing, think that's mega harsh. And then I texted it to some friends who were like, nah, it looks like intent. So I'm not entirely sure. My first instinct was that it was a little bit harsh, but intent doesn't matter. Is the sum total of the last 5 minutes of me speaking.
Well, life is a journey, and you went on a journey. So that is nice. I don't know, Will, if you have any strong thoughts on. I mean, it sort of killed the game, right? Newcastle were good, but we never really got to see what could have been a really exciting game. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't make that decision, but it did affect the whole game.
Yeah, it's not a red card. I mean, just think that. I know we go intent, blah, blah, blah. But I think he might have some sort of thought process. Running at that speed and whilst tumbling over that he might manage to stick his studs in Schär's back. I mean, if he had that level of brain power to do that, I mean, fair play, I think, give it to him. You know, how quickly can your mind work that you think this is what I'm going to do? I just don't think it's a red. I mean, I think the Match Day commentator was sort of adamant it was a red card and it was a disgrace. And obviously went and really kicked the water bottle at the end, which sort of added to it. Bit of theatre for everyone, or maybe a bit of panto, seeing as it's this time of year. But yeah, there was no way back for Villa. They looked very tired. I mean, they tried to give a goal away. Was it for the third? And then they eventually did give a goal away just to finish off, but they just looked quite tired, I think. You know, playing with 10 men for such a long period doesn't help, but a first season of playing Champions League football and this time of year really looks like it's caught up with them. You know, a lot of energy went into beating City. So Newcastle took advantage. I thought, you got Gordon and Hall on that left-hand side. It's probably the most exciting wing partnership in the league at the moment, maybe. And I think Tonali looked really good, which I was surprised to see. I thought he's looked quite slow when I've seen him before, but he won the ball back for the first goal, and he looks quite confident in there. And Newcastle on a bit of a roll themselves at the moment. Yeah,
Isak in great form as well. His 11th goal, his 7th in 6 games, and Jacob Murphy, who set him up, is having a good time, isn't it? So they're up to 5th on 29 points. Thing is, Jonathan, everyone down to Manchester United in 14th on 22 points could go on a run if 5th gets you the Champions League. It's possible, for Ruben Amorim to dream. Like, it's really bunched. There is a bit of a gap between the top 4, but it is bunched. Why are you laughing at me, Lars?
I was not expecting you to think about Ruben Amorim as one of the people who could dream, but I mean, you are right.
Yeah.
But it's like everyone from 14th onwards. Thomas Frank, all 5'7" of him, can dream. It's possible. Sorry, that was an unnecessary crossing of the streams again. Let's not do that. But you are right. I mean, Thomas Frank also, Ange can dream. He's on 23 points.
Yeah.
He's right in there. I just think, again, Alexander Isak is so good. I'm just going to throw this out here. I think he's a little bit streaky. He has periods when he doesn't score, but I really think he is a player who has a sort of golden boot winning season in him if he can have a full season of being injury free and playing for a team that doesn't go through like spells of being terrible. He's really, really good, Alexander Isak.
Jacob Townswell, who was there for the Athletics, saying Unai Emery and Jason Tindall have to be separated by the 4th official. Tindall puts his finger to his lips and tells Emery to shh. He was sent more class. from Jason Tyndall, who was sent off.
The assistant coach, I love that. The assistant coach doing a shushing feels like next level nonsense. It's really embarrassing. But I did notice Unai Emery, when Duran was walking off, very pointedly did not look at him. I thought that was interesting. When Duran was like kicking the bottle and like doing all the sort of alpha male, I'm very angry about this stuff. Unai Emery was like not even looking. He was looking the other way, quite sort of pointedly.
West Ham won at Southampton. I actually thought Jonathan Southampton had some decent chances before and after Bowen scored here. I mean, Juric has got a difficult job here, but they look slightly better than in the Russell Martin era.
Yeah, it's early days. I think it's hard to look worse, really, to be honest. Russell Martin stuck to his principles and did offer some fairly promising things at times, but really the Southampton fans by the end had seen enough of just so many individual mistakes and the kind of philosophy that he was trying to build there with a squad that wasn't really capable of implementing what he wanted. I think Juric would be more of a pragmatist, and of course, they're going to play a different style of play. But I think it's very early days really to judge on one match. Even Pereira, I found it strange in the Wolves game when they were talking about what has he implemented in the last two games that he's changed as if he's changed Wolves around. Really, a lot of it is not even on the field. They haven't had time. They don't have time to train. I mean, Amorim's been there for nearly 2 months and he hasn't had time to train, let alone Juric or Pereira managers like that. So I think it's more about maybe just the mental side of it, filling the players with confidence, giving them a new kind of voice, and that's what he'll work on. The time to train and implement his actual style of play will take several weeks. So I'm not sure you can draw too many conclusions there, except for the team selection maybe, which hints at how he might want to play in the future. But I think, Southampton fans can't get much worse, can it? So there's reason to be optimist.
I did like how Nicholas Füllkrug celebrated his assist as if he'd scored the winning goal in the World Cup final. But nice for him to be involved. It's been a tough start for him, and who doesn't want a big target man with one tooth missing to succeed in the Premier League. Last game, Bournemouth 0, Palace 0. Bournemouth probably had the best of it, but it was mainly players in decent positions dragging it wide. The next pod is on Monday, by the way. I mean, I'm 90% sure it's Friday today, but don't hold me to it. So we'll talk about today's games, or is it tomorrow's games?
Who knows, Max? Does it really matter?
So we will talk about today's games, Brighton, Brentford and Arsenal Ipswich, along with the weekend's games on Monday. Just a note from the Christmas pod. Will said, Barry's all-time best ever goal scorer seen live in the flesh, Scott Sinclair, missed an open goal from 6 yards today at Exeter. Congratulations to Charlton, who won the battle of producer Joel versus Max as Charlton beat the Mighty U's 2-1. And just a couple of nice emails that we got. Slightly self-indulgent, I guess, but the Christmas episode was fun, and lots of people got in touch, especially about the end, and to send their love to Emily, who was the final emailer. Ed says, hi all, I've been a long-time listener of the pod, my first time emailing, just want to write and thank you all for your honest and open discussion about losing someone. I know it's a downer topic for a Christmas episode, but it's definitely the time of year that you can feel lost the most when everyone is together without the person you were once close to. A couple of years ago, I lost a close friend just before Christmas. They were a person loved by so many people, and I still often find myself remarking with other friends about how they would have felt about a situation or the sort of joke they might have cracked in reaction to something. It was comforting to hear the panel's thoughts and experiences, and to know that it's normal to still hurt even a couple of years later. Thank you all. Hamza says, hello. Merry Christmas all, long-standing listener. I thought it important to email in and say the Christmas mailbag episode was not just a reminder of why you guys are the best football podcast around, but the best by a country mile. Let's not go too far, Hamza, but, we'll take it. Outstanding stuff, which made my day otherwise characterised by frustrating travel issues genuinely enjoyable for an hour and a bit. The last section in particular was really something. Wishing you all the best for the new year. And finally, Ruben says, hi, Football Weekly. I've been listening to you for over a decade. You've been quite an important resource during 2024, which has been a difficult year on a personal level for me. So thanks for this, but also for all the vasectomy emails, which, as well as being amusing, also serve to raise my awareness about this male means of contraception, which seems less common here in France, where I live. This has pushed me to take the decision to take on the responsibility for contraception within my relationship. I'm over 50 now, so the definitive aspect is not an issue. And also to ask the surgeon for only a local anaesthetic so I can listen to you on the 16th of January when I'm due to be operated. Thanks for everything. Hope we're not on strike that day, of course. And to let you know that you've done your bit in gender equality and contraception. Warm regards, Ruben in the south of France. Well, happy Christmas, Ruben. Good luck with the op. And to everyone else having a vasectomy. And to everyone else who isn't. We appreciate you all listening to us, and that'll do for today. Thank you, Will.
Thanks, Max.
Thank you, Lars.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Max.
Football Weekly is produced by Joel Grove. Our executive producer is Danielle Stevens. We'll be back on Monday.
This is The Guardian.